While 80,000 thoughts will bombard you today, just one conversation can make you 1% better. If you walk around with your nose in the air, you're going to end up flat on your face. But if you're content to simply be yourself, you'll become more than yourself. Thanks for hanging with us today as we discuss what erodes and cultivates growth, making us 1% better. Welcome to 1% Better with Marc Lucas and Brandon Mouer.
Hey, welcome to 1% Better with Marc Lucas and myself, Brandon Mouer. Marc, this is our 5th show.
It's crazy.
I
think I said it was our first show when we walked in.
When we walked in, like, hey,
Definitely
first
not
show.
Our first show. It's our 5th show.
5th show. Those of you who have followed us for 5 shows now, thank you. Those who are just tuning in for the first time, welcome to 1% Better with Marc Lucas and Brandon Mouer. We're glad you're here. Today, we thought we'd go into a direction that maybe you have been in the same direction. And I say that because did you know, now I Googled this the other day, so at the time of this recording, 2023, the top Google search people are typing in is what to watch. In 2023, in June, the current Google search, top Google search, is what to watch. With 9,140,000 Google searches, what to watch is at the top. And that makes sense, right? With COVID being in June 2023, COVID being 3 years ago, and entertainment has kind of been on a high. It's always been popular, of course, but it's been on a high recently in these last 3 years with what to do. Entertainment, right? What gives you pleasure, what gives you entertainment, what makes you laugh, what makes you cry, what makes you have an inside joke with friends, right? It's all maybe great stuff. But it was really interesting to me that it was that much, 9,140,000 people or searches of what to watch. And I think that's important to talk about on this show because this show, once again, is all about growth, getting 1% better every single day. And so I think how we try to relate to what to watch in 1% Better is it's important, Marc and I personally believe, that what we are consuming on a daily basis is important. Would you agree with that, Marc?
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's so vitally important.
Vitally important. Some videos you watch can drain you at the end of watching it. It can make you cry. It can mess with your emotions. It can be great things. It could excite you. It could energize you. It could teach you. And like a lot of cooking videos, my wife is really into cooking. And when her and I first got married, she was into baking, and so she would go on TikTok and find people are just how to bake this, how to cook this, how to draw this, right? There's so much that you can learn with consuming, but I also think, on the contrary, there's a lot that you can get hurt by, for lack of a better word, right, of what you're consuming. So that's where we're going today. Thank you for tuning in. 1% Better show with Marc Lucas and Brandon Mouer. Marc, take it away.
I love it. Well, I mean, that's a huge number, the number that Brandon just gave. And again, it's amazing to think about the quantity of people that are searching as I'm searching out there and as Brandon's searching, what should we watch? And a lot of times in conversation, if there's a new show that one of my buddies is watching, he wants to share with me, hey, have you seen this show? Have you watched this show? If you've seen this video on TikTok, have you seen this? Have you watched this? So I think it's pretty consistent vernacular that we're having throughout most of our weeks, throughout most of the months of our life. So at the end of the day, I think this show is about, okay, we're going to search, and it's okay to search what to watch. Mm-hmm. But then we've got to really kind of ask ourselves, if we want to, we believe you're here with us in a journey, all of us, to get better, we got to kind of ask ourselves some follow-up questions. Hey, the stuff that I've been watching this week, is it really making me 1% better? The stuff that I've been consuming, putting into my mind, is it making me 1% better? And I remember my dad used to say this a lot when I was a kid, and I probably say it to my kids today, and it's like, garbage in, garbage out, son. I'm like, yes, Dad, I know. Garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. And I'm like, okay, Dad, I know. Garbage in, garbage out. But the reality is that's truth. Like, that is truth. And a quick story that maybe the first time I believed my dad, he had said this for years, was I'm on a date night, Brandon, and it's one of my first dates when I was in like early part of high school. And I just got my license. Like, to me, a date is when you can actually drive somewhere and pay for the date with your own, pay for the date with your own money. So we're sitting there, and I absolutely hate horror movies. Like, I just despise horror movies. But the girl that I was taking, she wanted to go see a horror movie. She loved horror movies. So we're sitting there. We had like the $6 popcorn that I had to really dive deep into my wallet to afford, a giant Coke or whatever we're drinking, and Sour Patch Kids. You got to have good candy too, the sweet and savory. And we're in this horror movie, and all the stuff that we're seeing on the screen, we're obviously watching and putting into our minds. And the entire time we're watching all of this buildup to this point, kind of the climax of the movie, where, no offense if you're blonde, but she was a blonde girl that at like 2 a.m. decides to go wander out in the forest, even though she had just was unable to locate 4 of her best friends that had been massacred by somebody with a pitchfork.
It's always that college
college blonde girl. She goes out in the middle of the forest. She's like, I've got to find my friends. Maybe they're out in the forest at 2 a.m. I've heard screaming sounds, but I'm still going to go.
Why not?
And it's like the leaves are like crunching between her feet, and the music is building, and you know it's going to happen. Like, you know the main guy that just massacred her friends is going to jump out, but you don't know when. And he jumps out just at that point where you're not expecting it. And I'm like, ah! And I spill my popcorn, and I literally thought the guy was going to jump through the screen and hurt me. But obviously that's so crazy. Like, it's not going to happen that way. But honestly, at that point, and maybe not that point, but later that night, I'm like, you know what? My dad was right. The stuff that I was putting into my mind throughout that entire movie was like building more and more fear and more reality, that I thought what I was watching was truth.
Sure.
And I was putting garbage in that really dictated my behavior and really dictated me to be in a place of like having fear. So at the end of the day, I say that to you guys listening in, and gals, because at the end of the day, it's like, what we're putting into our mind does really control our behavior.
Oh, yeah.
It does really control how we think about ourselves. It controls in a massive way how we think about life, our general perspective on life, how we're thinking about our emotions. So add to that. But for me, it's like, I think about that moment. I was like, you know what? The power of our minds and what we put into our minds is so important. We have to filter it. And we've got to kind of do an inventory check on what we're putting into our minds,
That's awesome. That's a great story, I'm sure. I'm
still scared of it, but yes, it is a good story. I don't like horror movies still to this day. So don't give me a message and contact us at 1%show.com and say, Mark, why are you so wimpy? I still don't like horror movies, but keep going.
I don't like horror movies either.
I don't like them at all.
So yeah, I love that you said that what you're consuming, because you're right. It does stick with, even their story stuck with you. Like, even though you're not scared of it anymore, it's still stuck with you. It's a moment, an experience. People bond over experiences, right? So maybe it's with her as well, laughing at you screaming.
Probably.
She wasn't screaming. But so there's a statistic. So, okay, I want to preface this by saying this statistic that I am about to say was found in 2014. And I know it's 2023, but I don't think it's changed. I didn't do my research on it, so you can do your research, but I don't think it's changed. That's why I think I'm confident to say it. Yeah. But in 2014, the statistic showed that, and you probably know this being a dad. I'm not a dad, but Mark is a dad, so maybe you know this statistic if it's true or not. But
dads are smarter, so that makes sense. Yeah, keep going.
90% of a girl's identity comes from the voice of their father. Back in 2014, 90% was the statistic that a girl's identity comes from the voice of their father. So I am not a father. I am married. I do want kids, but currently I'm not a father. He has 3 kids and he has 2 daughters.
Ew.
So Mark, I know, being at your house often and growing up with you, in the sense of not you as a kid, but us growing together, and his kids growing up, me being able to see them and his wife speak life into his kids. But Mark, as the father, I've seen him speak into his kids. I've seen him pray with his kids, for his kids, teach his kids some things, right? Godly stuff, try to example his faith what he believes to be true, to that let them model right and wrong living, all that stuff, right? But I think I bring that statistic up because I think it goes into what are we consuming, and if 90% of a girl's identity comes from the voice of her father, if that's a true statistic, and I believe it is, that's like crazy of what even guys are consuming. Like what I don't think we take into consideration every single time we scroll on what we're actually looking at, whether it's good or bad. Again, you will know if it's bad, clearly. Right. You will also know if it's bad by the way you feel afterwards, like you were saying, if it's draining you, if it's making you upset, and then if you have a roommate or a friend or a spouse living with you and you watch something that's making you upset, you lash out at them, and they didn't do anything. They just asked you a question, but because you're already in that mode of feelings, and then it made you consume something that wasn't polite. Here's something too, a very quick story. Like you said, last night, my wife is watching a video of a recent shooting. Right? All these shootings going on recently and different things. And there was a recent shooting, and my wife was watching it for probably like 15 minutes. And she was really into it. It was a documentary, and people who were there experienced it live. And we were about to make dinner right after that. It was just the plan. She was just vegging on the couch. And literally, she got up after the 15 minutes and was like, babe, I'm not really hungry right now. Like, I don't feel good. And she didn't eat something bad because she hasn't eaten yet. Like, she was fine before that. And I'm not being like knock on wood or crystals, like being superstitious or anything. But my point I'm trying to drive home here is that she watched something that wasn't necessarily positive at all. And then she literally went to the bathroom. And not to give you too much information, she went to the bathroom for a little bit because her stomach just was messed up. Yeah. But it's because of what she consumed, I believe, in that moment. Mm-hmm. So take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, it even affects just even not only just how you think about yourself, but even just your physical well-being.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so important for us to be able to navigate this today. So I thought one of the things that we'd like to give you, because obviously we want to create some awareness. So hopefully there's some awareness as we kind of kick the show off, for you to really ask yourself, okay, what am I watching? Is there any type of filter into a place of me saying, okay, at the end of the week or the end of the day or even the end of a couple days, I kind of check in and say, okay, how are my emotions right now? How are my energy? How's my energy level right now? Honestly, do I feel pretty good about myself right now? Do I feel good about my relationships? Do I feel good about what's going on right now in the marketplace at work? Asking yourself some of those questions. I think we've got to have an awareness to really identify what we're putting in, again, what we're consuming into our minds, what we're watching, what's the impact? Physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, like what is that impact? Because there's an impact, a huge impact.
Absolutely.
And then asking that question, having that awareness, now we kind of transition, Brandon, into some information. So again, Brandon and I have a personal relationship with Jesus. Wherever you are right now in that journey, thank you for being a part of this journey with us. We want you to stay with us, but we have a relationship with Jesus, and there's something that really helps us kind of really frame out this conversation that comes from a place that is Paul, who wrote in the Bible, and he's speaking to a place in Rome. Mm-hmm. And it's a church in Romans. And it says this, and I love this so much. I think it's going to really help provide some depth and insight into this conversation today.
Yeah.
It says this, so here's what I want you to do. God is helping you take your everyday, ordinary life, like you're sleeping, you're eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God. Love that, okay? Great practical step. Next, embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. Do not, this is the key now, we look at our minds, look at what we're consuming. Do not become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed. We've talked a lot about how we identify us getting 1% better and growing. You'll be changed from the inside out. True lasting growth happens. Brandon and I have talked about this already quite a bit in the show. If you haven't heard it, go back to shows 1 and 2, from the inside out. Readily recognize what he wants from you and quickly respond to it. God, lead me, guide me. Just have conversations with God. You don't have to change the way that you speak. You can speak the exact same language that you speak every day.
Yeah.
God created you in that exact language to communicate with him. So readily recognize what he wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, which is always dragging us down to its level of immaturity. God brings the best out of you. He develops you in a well-formed maturity from the inside out.
So good. Yeah, Romans 12. Romans chapter 12 in the Bible. So good.
It's so good.
So good.
And I think at the end of the day, what I would just follow up, and you've got some things you want to add to, but just quickly, what I would follow up is this. God loves us more than we could ever really comprehend in our brains, okay, with our minds. God loves you. And in that beautiful love for us, the love that he has for us, he wants us to have this open communication with him, to constantly be leaning in, no matter where you are in your journey right now in your relationship with God, to lean in, to have conversations and hang out with God, just to have a conversation and openness when you connect with God, to then ask God, Lord, God, help me not continually be dragged down by the things in culture that I'm consuming that really are bringing me to a place of immaturity. But God, give me maturity emotionally, give me maturity in my intellect, give me maturity physically, and Lord, help me figure out even maturity spiritually.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, something you and I do often is pray. And just in our regular, like you said, in our everyday language. God can handle your language, whether it's cussing or it's happiness, frustration, whatever it might be. Just speak. He can handle it. And he made you, like Marc has said, and he's for you. Like here, he's for you. He's not mad at you. He's for you. There's a different translations in the Bible. All there is for is just people to give easier understanding, like the thou shalt not, like that's not our culture today. So people have translated the Bible so we can understand it. So there's another translation of Romans chapter 12, as Marc just read. There's a Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Another translation, another way to say the verse 2. It's a famous one. That's why I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to say something with it. But Romans 12, Romans chapter 12, verse 2, it says, don't be conformed to the patterns and customs of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so I want to add something to that because that's what Marc said in a different way, just a different translation. When you conform to the customs of the world, of culture, people think, like when they're 18, right? Oh, I'm going to rebel. Like I'm going to do sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like I'm going to get money, whatever it might be. They want to rebel at 18 because maybe their parents were strict or whatever it might be, right? They're in school. Now that they get freedom, just rebel, yeah. Really though, I've learned, being 25, I'm only 25, so take it for what this is worth, but learned that you're not really rebelling when you follow what everyone else is doing. Everybody's going to, quote unquote, rebel because everyone wants the freedom. Everyone wants the sex, drugs, and rock and roll to feel better, to fit in with friends, peer pressure, whatever it might be. So you're not really rebelling. You're actually just conforming to what everyone else is doing. In order to rebel to the customs of the world and to culture, you would have to be doing something that not everybody's doing, which in this culture in 2023, what is most people not doing? Following Jesus. Living right, living like Jesus, following the Bible isn't popular in 2023. There's people that do it, don't get me wrong, but it's not popular. And so when people are like, I'm going to rebel and not follow Jesus, I'm like, some Christians are like, I'm going to rebel. I don't want this Jesus thing. So I'm going to go follow the world. It's like, you're rebelling against the Bible, but you're just conforming, doing it when everyone else is doing. Rebelling would be continuing following Jesus, fighting to live right and learn what is truth and all that stuff. Is that something that you would agree on, or is this a slippery slope that I'm going down?
No. I mean, it's so much harder to live for Jesus than it is to just conform or live in the patterns of the world, right? Yeah, I mean, we have to, all of us, you and I both, we have to make a decision. And a part of that decision is what we're talking about now. And the decision is, are you happy where you are right now, currently today?
Good question.
And if the answer is yes, great. But I would ask you, as I ask myself, and Brandon would ask himself, are you happy and satisfied where you are in a state of having peace in your life? Are you happy and satisfied where you are in your relationships, the intimate relationships in that close circle of 5 that we've talked a lot about that's so important for growth? Are you content and satisfied where you are in the ways that you are giving back and contributing to society, living a life that's not just for yourself? And there's other questions, but those are some of the primary ones. And if you can honestly answer, I am deeply satisfied and maybe even above and exceeding my expectations in those questions, like meeting and exceeding the expectations that I have for myself, then great. But I would venture to say that especially if you're living your life like we've talked about in these shows, forget about me, I love you, that family acronym, or you're living your life for other people as best you can. We don't do this perfectly. Then I would venture to say you've figured out faith somewhere in that journey. You've figured out a personal relationship with Jesus somewhere in that journey. Because for myself as well, when I am really kind of chronically dissatisfied with where I am in life, which is really a first and maybe primary question I ask myself around what am I consuming in the way of media? What am I consuming in the way of what I'm watching? Okay, as how we started the show. When I am not satisfied, I am not consuming things that are healthy and good for me, because I'm probably living, and I kind of joke in this, but I'm living in the place of E-R. And what I mean by that is when you're living in the land of E-R, you're living in a place where you're constantly in a land of comparison. If I could just be prettier like she, and you're a girl, or if I could have the muscles and have the physique that he has, then I would be happy. If I would just have the job, or just have the car, or the status, or whatever it is, the followers, that's living in a place of comparison. And if that is, and if you're honest with yourself, if you're creeping into those waters and you find some consistency in those the waters of living in that land of and comparison, the reality is you and I both, when we say yes to that, we're probably not consuming the right things. So we've got to ask ourselves, okay, how do we find things that are actually going to be true that we consume, things that are going to be helpful that we're consuming, things that are inspiring, okay? Things that have actually a message of kindness and compassion and love, consume those things. And I'm not just saying you have to like watch Barbie and like Disney. Like I'm just like, and not even Disney's
Not
that.
even Disney.
But the reality is like, you've just got to find, even when you search what to watch, find things that truly build you up and give you emotional security, give you maturity and growth. So some of the final thoughts you have on that, because we're about to end it up.
Yeah, and I don't mishear us and say, oh, then you're just saying don't have fun in what you watch, forget all entertainment. Like, no. Have fun, have entertainment, sports, music, art, dancing, whatever it might be. Have fun. Watch stuff that just entertains you, that maybe you don't grow from it in the sense of like, oh, now I know how to do my finances. No, just, oh, I like so-and-so music artist, something for me. I like music. I'm going to watch his or her show live on YouTube. It's great. It's entertainment. So you don't have to like just restrict yourself to just growth. But the point we're trying to drive home, just to reiterate, is that what are you consuming and is it helping you grow 1% better every day?
Absolutely. That's exactly the truth. Because at the end of the day, that's why you and I are here with you guys and gals in this journey to say, at the end of the day, our desire, our prayer, this is most important, our prayer for you, because we pray for you, the audience. Our prayer for you is that you would be getting 1% better as you consume and watch and listen to the content that we have here in the show. The desire that we have is that we continually grow, even if it's just 1% this week or 1% this month. We want you to get better. Watch what you're watching. Make sure that it's helping you emotionally, physically, spiritually grow into the person that you want to become. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you real soon. Take care.
You're playing with my 1%. You're playing with my 1%.